So I'm trying to understand, what is the mindset here? How do you prioritize what you spread your time, efforts and money on, and what do you think you're going to be able to find? What's that rest of the year look like for you in terms of what you're going to be able to tell the market with a surety as opposed to we hope? Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We're here today with Nick von Schirnding, who's the CEO of ARCM Minerals. They're a copper gold play, main assets copper in Zambia, and we're going to learn all about that today, aren't we?
We are indeed.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Been trying to speak to you for a while. You're a busy guy, doing lots, and I can see the share price is reflecting that. So can you tell us a little bit about the company? 1 minute summary for those people new to this story.
Sure. Well, look, ARC is a copper-gold exploration play. Mm-hmm. We've got gold assets in the DRC, Slovakia, and then a very exciting copper interest in Zambia.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's start with the gold, because obviously recent announcements, you are offloading the gold component. So let's deal with that first, so we can get that out of the way and talk about copper proper. So what have you done there with the gold assets?
So if you step back a bit to when I joined this company, when it was still ARCM in its previous form, mm-hmm. We had really a bunch of minority assets and one subsidiary, which was Slovakian Gold. I identified quite early on, together with our team, that the real priority here needs to be copper. However, given all the rules that operate under AIM, we needed a stepping stone to get there, and so our first move in that respect was to acquire control and majority ownership of Casa, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the DRC gold mining asset, or gold asset, I should say. That's a quite a big deposit. It's a 50-kilometer gold belt. We upgraded that resource from circa just over 1 million to 3 million ounces, and the intention then was really to move that on, and you know, with higher values that we bought it for, and really then focus on our Zambian copper. So right. With the announcement earlier this week, we have announced a binding SPA with an outfit called Century Capital in Canada, and we're selling that for just under $10 million US. So it's a decent deal for us.
Yeah.
You know, we obviously would have hoped for a better price, but you know, that's pretty much the best deal.
So what does that mean in terms of cash? You've sold it for 10 million. Are you getting 10 million cash?
No, so we are getting a significant amount of cash up front, just under $2 million.
Right.
And then the balance is on achieving various stage gate hurdles, increasing the resource.
What's their or your expectation in terms of the flow of that cash back to you?
Well, look, we've got until early Jan to complete this, and then shortly after that we will be paid the $1.8 million,
right?
Which will come in very handy to apply to our Zambian copper exploration.
Okay.
And then, as and when they increase the resource, we will achieve a further roughly sort of 8 million.
Right, so there's a series of hurdles before you can achieve the other 8 million, or see
Correct.
the other 8 million flow in, and it will be over a period of time to be determined,
Correct.
depending on the speed at which they allocate cash and resource to do that.
Correct.
Okay, but it's in the bag. It's in the background.
It's in the bag in so much as final DD needs to be completed from now till early Jan. So assuming that they don't find any major hurdles there,
right.
You know, we should be fine. They have done. We've been talking to them for the past 3 months or so. So
right.
I'm quite satisfied that, you know, A, they're serious players, B, they have the funds, and C, they have real plans to grow this asset. So that's encouraging.
That's an interesting one. You know, because been in this position ourselves a few times when people say you're certain they've got the money today, they don't need to go and raise it, and Correct. They have the capability to develop this asset out. So you've been through a process of diligence as well.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
As I say, it's good. I mean, they're you know, the founders are a very reputable bunch. They've got you know, guys in Vancouver. They've got guys in the UK. They've spent quite a lot of money flying to and from to sort of consummate this transaction. They're going out to site next week with some of our team. You know, they're funding quite a significant portion of that. So, you know, these aren't sort of fly-by-nights who's trying to do some quick deal and put it in some listed vehicle and spin it off. So, you know, I'm quite satisfied that they have real plans for Casa. And, you know, this is, as I say, this is a gold belt that is 50 kilometers in length. It's got probably close to, if you talk to some of the experts there, 10 to 15 million ounces of gold. So we're maybe just scratching the surface here, and that was key for me, is to have, if you like, a sort of upside potential for our shareholders. That people, of course, always want a better price, and so did I.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and we've been rattling that cage for almost a year now, and we have had no offer close to what we've done. So I think it's a good deal for ARC, particularly given that we can reap some of the upside going forward.
Right. We get that a lot with the West Africa goals. I know this is down in DRC, but you see these stories, early stage stories, with lots of potential. Things can go wrong, so people just need to be mindful of the fact that it comes with the usual risk and caveats attached. Okay. And you've got another gold asset.
We've got another gold asset in Slovakia. That was the one, as I say, Ortac originally based all of its future around, really. At one stage in Ortac's life, it was a £60 million market cap with only one asset, and that was Slovakia. So it's an interesting asset, but we're small, and as I say, from the outset, the priority is really to focus on our Zambian copper. So to me, focus is key, and not spread our things to.
Was there any sort of monetization of that, or was it a case of relinquishing of liabilities, financial liabilities associated with that?
Well, we haven't sold Slovakia yet, so we're in discussions.
Okay, you're in discussions at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay,
but really, to offload that will result then in, together with the sale of the DRC gold asset, in us being then a pure play copper.
I get it.
Focused in Zambia.
Okay, so let's get on to copper. And let's, before we do that, try and understand the mindset. I know you've sort of come in with and inherited certain assets, and you're moving it from gold, pure play gold, to copper. So what's the business plan? What's your strategy? What's the thinking? And where are you going to take this thing? So maybe talk about the teams, the conversations that you have internally about what you're trying to create.
Sure. Look, we've got about just under 900 square kilometers of what we think is probably the most unexplored copper potential in Central and Southern Africa. We own this through two licenses, one called Zamsort and one called Zaco. We're the largest controlling shareholder in both those properties, and we had to do that because of the rules that pertain to use it or lose it in Zambia. So if you don't develop certain of those lands, you lose 50% following a certain period. So so those are the two properties that we have. That ground used to be owned by Anglo American. I used to work for Anglo for many years. When they left Zambia, principally Konkolo, but they also had these exploration properties, and not only us, but they had what is now owned by First Quantum and Barrick as well. If you look at their ranking going back a few years, their top sort of 30 targets, we have, I think, 9 of their top 10 in our portfolio. So
how do they rank them?
Well, really through some geochem and geophysic work that they did originally, a little bit of drilling.
When you say top 10, why have they relinquished those?
Well, they got out of Zambia wholesale, so they'd got rid of all their operating assets and all of their exploration properties.
Right. Okay.
And we are now sitting with, as I say, a number of those in the top 10 of the 30. Interesting, Kalumbila, which is part of First Quantum, was ranked at 22. Today it's a multi-billion-dollar operation. So, no, I'm not saying that we're necessarily sitting on a Kalumbila, but clearly, we are sitting on some really, really interesting prospective.
Yeah, but that's why I ask about how do you rank these things, because they'll rank them at a certain stage, of very early stage, with barely any data. Some drill holes, or I'm not quite sure what. If you go and spend tens or hundreds of millions developing something, you know a lot more about it, and it can become $1 billion operation for sure. So you're not at that stage yet, though, are you? In terms of what you've got, you're still working out what it is that you've got.
Correct. So we've done extensive geochem work on the whole property. Thousands and thousands of soil samples that we've picked up and developed and analysed and so on. And so we have a pretty good picture. And that's really now materialised into sort of 14 anomalies that we've set out as targets for us. And we're just sort of starting that work now.
Right, so explain to people what that means. So anomalies, lots of companies find lots of anomalies in things that look interesting but they're not quite sure why. What's the process that you're going through to prioritise where you spend your money? Because money is tight, right? So you're a small market cap company, you've got certain cash reserves. I know potentially another nearly 2 million coming in maybe post Christmas, but how do you prioritise what you focus your time, efforts and money on, and what do you think you're going to be able to find through that process?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of important issues you raise there. So I mean, firstly, in terms of delineating what we have, you've got to do the hard yards. So the geochem work that we've done, as I say, has been extensive, and that gives you a picture. Exploration is a sort of series of layers that you have to build upon and to really form a decent picture of what one has. So one of those layers is geochem, and that's sort of traditionally where you normally start. The second layer would be some, if you can afford it, some geophysical work, and we've done some of that. We did some airborne survey work about a year ago, and that's also another layer of evidence. And so you overlay all of this, and then you come to a view with your geologists, and we don't only use our geologists, we also use third-party external advisors to help us come to a landing. And so we then, are based on that information, prioritise what we think are the high priority targets. Right,
and so you have been doing some drilling.
We have indeed.
Not what sort of levels?
So we really started, we did a little bit of drilling last year at around Calibre, where we inherited a small scale demonstration plant.
Yeah.
And we completed that. We did a bit of drilling. It averaged at sort of 0.5% copper, so nothing
standard.
To sort of write home about. But we needed that to really see whether we could feed that plant with some material. The big proper exploration work really started this year, and that was around the number one target was the Chirza East. And I'm happy to say, and you've probably seen this through announcements, that we've had a number of really, really interesting successes there. Of the sort of circa 4,500 meters drilled, about 75% of them are mineralized. I mean, that's an incredible result. Right. When you think that this is sort of greenfield, very early stage exploration.
Okay.
And those grades, more encouragingly, are averaging at 1% plus. I mean, as high as 5 or 6% in some of the holes we've drilled. So, we're delineating at the moment, and I think what will be a really nice, albeit small at this stage, 1% plus copper resource.
Right.
And that's tremendously exciting.
So, like I say, this is. I'm just going to paint a picture for people looking at this and saying, getting a view what type of investment this is. So this is very early stages. It's greenfield. You've done a lot of work on the surface. You've got a lot of knowledge about how the process ahead of you. But 4,000 meters is not a lot of data that you've gathered. You've got more drilling to do to be able to paint this picture of what's going on under the ground.
Yeah.
So have you got the cash to be able to do that going forward? What's the next 12 months look like for you in terms of what your current cash position is to allow you to do what you need to do?
Yeah. Look, it's an absolutely critical issue because, if you were a major, you would have gone about this in a very different way. You would have applied, tens of millions and put in, 30 rigs or whatever it might be. We have 3 rigs. So you're right, we're small. We need to watch our pennies. We do this on a very, very tight leash. We operate essentially on a decentralized model. We have a subcontractor who does all our drilling in Zambia.
And that's on a sort of drill for equity or partial drill for equity basis.
Exactly.
Right.
So, which is a great deal for us. So we've done it with minimal cash expenditure from ARC's perspective, although some cash. We effectively pay, I think, 16% of the drilling in cash, and the balance in shares. And they are as keen as we are on this project. So they see this as an investment, the driller.
No, I can say that's smart. And again, to explain to people what that means, that's a case of that you may pay a little bit more per meter, but you're not having the cash outlay yourself now. So it's a good way to finance projects like this. I've seen some of those before.
It is
interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, and actually, we're not paying any extra for it. So so again, we've been very competitive in terms of identifying a driller that could do this most economically for us. So we're very pleased with them. They're called Baba Drilling. And they're a Zambian DRC driller, and we've had a great experience with them.
So down back to the question, which was how do you finance the rest of the? I know it's coming up towards the rainy season now.
Yeah,
and that takes 3 or 4 months out of the drill program, but I guess you're going to be assaying and assessing and looking at data. But when you get back into it, come end of March, April.
Yeah.
So what's that rest of the year look like for you in terms of what you're going to be able to tell the market with a surety as opposed to we hope?
Look, we've been really clear with the market that we don't want to operate in, if you like, the traditional AIM market junior exploration company where they're repeatedly going back to the retail market every 3, 4, 5 months and issuing a slug of shares at a massive discount.
Yeah.
That's a tried and tested model. Your market cap might go up, but your share price flatlines. I don't want to be part of that.
So how do you not do that?
So if you think about it, our last raise was in February, which people forget. We've survived for most of this year without doing any further raise, partly because we've been really, really disciplined on cutting costs. I myself and the rest of the board, we've halved our salaries. We've taken shares at times, and so it's not about us. This is not a lifestyle company. We are.
You've done that recently, but I mean, how much money have you guys taken out of the company prior to this? I mean, how much money's gone into the company first of all?
Well, our last raise was close to £2 million back in February.
But and before that?
Probably about the same.
Right.
6-9 months earlier. So we've obviously had raises, but we've avoided it partly because we've achieved this, what I think is a very good deal for us with the driller. Because had we not had that, yes, we would have obviously had to do further raises. But we've avoided that by doing this drilling for equity. Do
you think that? I know you've halved your salary, which is great. At least you're doing that. A lot of people don't. But do you think then you're paying yourselves too much or taking too much out of the company prior to this? Should you have remunerated yourselves a different way?
I think whether you do it cash, shares, both. I think to get good people, you've got to pay a decent wage. Right. The expression, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So, you need to get good people. We've just hired a first-rate CFO, ex Morgan Stanley, head of commodities sales there.
Not full time though.
Yes, full time.
Full time.
A guy called Remy Welshinger. So I'm delighted with him. He's got exactly the same mindset as we all do, which is to maximise, the returns for shareholders. That is our only key priority.
What does that actually mean? What do you think that means?
It goes back to the way, or the different way of a junior that operates in the way we do.
So I get the drill for equity thing. I think that's smart. What are the other things that you do? You cut your salaries and
I think the other thing is
what else?
The other thing is you've got to be a little bit more disciplined in terms of who you raise capital with. When I was at Anglo American, when Anglo was under attack by Xstrata, the chairman at the time, Sir John Parker, said to me, and there were a lot of hedge funds that had come into Anglo with all their various demands, and he said, we deserve the shareholders we have. And I've always remembered that. So if you want to have, zillions of retail shareholders who are going to be in and out, every day, and your share price is just going to be all over the place, good luck. Now, to some extent, the juniors don't have that choice. And I don't think we necessarily currently have that choice, but we are certainly working extremely hard to get a different sort of investor on board, which is a small type of institution. It's the family office. It's family. Remy was instrumental in, for instance, bringing, a Swedish family office and an Omani family office on board.
And they got big offices, or
yeah, they are.
Are they going to follow their money?
They have.
They have followed the money so far.
So
When was the last time they did that?
Well, they did the last 2 raises, so the last time in February. So
Okay.
and they're super keen. I mean, they are following every single announcement, every development. I'm in regular contact with them. Those are the sort of long term. They realise what this game's about. Look, this is going to be either 0 or a 10 bagger,
Right.
okay, or more, 10, 20 bagger.
But if
So
I
they know this game, and they know that it requires commitment. This is not sort of a 6 month sort of upside where you sort of make your money and then zip off.
But is it the case they can throw their money at this and speak? You said earlier, Anglo would do this differently.
Yeah.
Right. So if money, these firms understand and believe your story, could they throw more money at it to speed the process
They
up?
could, and that's what we're talking about with them and others. So look, ideally, we want to raise, not raise, well, we will certainly invest in exploration, $5 to $10 million over the next 12 to 18 months to really, going back to your early point, to really see what we have, because only that way can you understand if you have the sort of mother lode that somebody takes you out for multiples of that.
So where does 5 to 10 million come from today? How much cash have you got today?
Today we have, we haven't disclosed it, so I wouldn't be able to do that without a public announcement. But put it this way, we are good until certainly into early next year, and thereafter we have close to $2 million. So we're fine for the next, and the drilling season stops, towards December anyway. So we're fine for the next few months, and we're working hard on plans in terms of bringing in bigger amounts of capital from the right sort of institutions and shareholders.
But that would be new equity issued.
Yes,
for that.
Yes, it would.
Okay.
Yes, it would. And that's okay because if we then have a roadmap going forward with say $5 million US in the bank, where we can say to people, that's it now, we're good, we're done for the next 12 to 18 months, and hopefully following that sort of extensive, much larger drilling campaign, we really emerge then with something quite significant. The game changes.
Okay, and you're saying you want a smaller institutional because they've got a slightly longer time horizon and not kind of flipping in and out. But do you see the value of retail investors? Do you think that affects your liquidity or volume of trading? Is that an important aspect for you, or think the phase of your development you need stability of investor?
Look, we've got a lot of very supportive retail shareholders, so I'm not going to run them down. But we also have individuals who come in and out of the stock, every other day, and that's not the sort of shareholder I want.
Right.
Mining is a long-term game, and I know shareholders and institutions have different time frames to companies, particularly in long lead times like this with mining. The other point which I should raise when we talk about investment is the role of bigger mining companies. So we have signed NDAs with, I think now 4 very large mining companies. We have slightly different near-term objectives.
To do what? What for?
To potentially come and acquire us or help develop it.
Is that your model? Money in.
Not a model, but it's certainly something, if you have something interesting, you should be eliciting interest from the majors. And in fact, the reverse has happened. They have approached us. I mean, I got a call when I was sitting in Greece in the summer, in August, from a very large a mining house that phoned me out of the blue and said, quote unquote, these are the best exploration results out of Africa in the last decade. Okay. So, these aren't easy assets to come by, interesting development assets like this. And I think the majors, unlike some of the day traders, they do see value here. So they are doing their homework. We've got them in the data room, and they're going to, make up their minds over time. But they're doing site visits and so on. So, that's the other route to potentially developing this. But, our goal is not to bring a major in, at the sort of most depressed valuation and allow them to take control overnight. We can do that very easily, but that's not the game.
Okay. Well, what I'm trying to get at is what is the game? Because for majors, they take options on lots of small exploration plays. It makes sense to, because it saves them the cost of exploring, and they've got optionality as to whether they come in or not, depending on what happens with your results. For them, it's optionality. They could have 100 of these, right? But for you, you've got to maintain control. I think that's what you're saying. So I'm trying to understand, what is the mindset here? Are you? You just said we're not looking to be taken out anytime soon, but we want to keep our options open.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So look, everything has a price, right? So
Right.
you know, if there's an earn-in that you know gives them control for a number that we couldn't possibly match, that's one option. If there's an earn-in with a sort of minority interest where we, you know, partake with them, that's another option. If there's a position where they say they actually don't want to invest in the underlying asset, they actually want to put more money into ARC at the top and be part of the bigger picture from a sort of, if you like, London perspective, and have an interest in ARC itself, that's also an option. So
what's your preference?
to be honest, I'm ambivalent. I think all of the above would work. I think it's all about value for me. So you know, if we can put in the right sort of capital that has the best outcome for our shareholders,
Right.
that we will look at.
So what are those points in time? So like we said earlier, you know something. You're using your experience, the team's using their experience to make some assumptions about what it is that you've got. You think you're onto something good. You've chosen copper, very hot topic,
Yep.
EV revolution and all of that stuff. But what are those moments in time in terms of where you give a surety around the data that you have, that these big guys will come in and have a proper conversation with you as opposed to just keeping tabs with how you're getting on? What's the next point in time?
Look, it's difficult because obviously it's not in my grasp to project what a major might do. I mean,
Of course.
they might take ARC out tomorrow morning.
But you're an experienced guy.
Look, I think they need more data points, more
Yeah.
data sets. So you know, we are working on that. We're working with them. They want to see the type of core. They're not necessarily interested in, you know, the next drill result and whether it was 1% or 1.2%. You know, that's not the priority. It's really to see whether we're sitting on some bigger system in that area of Zambia. Because you know, these if you look at that domes region, you know, you've got three very large mining companies. You know, two assets within First Quantum and one within Barrick. You know, those are all multi-billion-dollar mines, all previously owned, by the way, by Anglo. So you know, we're just on the other side of that domes region, in the cobalt.
I get it, you're in the right part of the world, but you, like I say, you've got a lot of data to gather. So I'm trying to get a sense of how much, from your experience, 20 years plus, you know, big company mentality as well, is how much money, how much time for you can think you're going to have the type of conversation that you want to be able to have with these guys, where you're, you know, maximizing shareholder value.
As I say, I think you know, $5 million exploration over the next 12 to 18 months will get us a long way.
Right.
If you do it our way, which is you know, really efficiently and you know, the junior mentality, not the major mentality, because you know, don't forget the major mining companies have been, you know, singularly unsuccessful in developing their exploration portfolios
for lots of reasons.
For lots of reasons, but also, you know, partly, and I know this from my experience with a major, is that you know, they have huge teams in these exploration departments.
I want to ask you about
and
this.
they're not incentivized, and so you know, in a way, you know, the longer they continue drilling, great, because they all have a job and they
get paid.
They get paid very well.
It's brilliant.
Whereas the junior, as I'm finding out, lives hand to mouth.
Great conversation. Right, there's a great conversation because you've got the big blue chip CV. It's great. So how have you morphed into an explorer? What are the different challenges that you receive? Because before you had money, people, time, all of those, lots of projects. You know, it's a very different environment. Now you're watching the pennies. You've got to find the right assets. You've got to spend your money wisely. What are the other challenges that you found?
I think those are key.
And Zambia, which is, you know,
Zambia's
got it. Checker past.
Zambia's a great place to operate.
Okay.
So, you know, and I've operated in Indonesia, which is a much more difficult place to operate than say Zambia. So, every country has its challenges, including the UK.
Well, I think a few people are finding out that in the last couple of months.
Indeed.
So back to the question: what are the things that you've learnt being now an explorer?
Cash is king. You need the right postcode, and you need good people. I think with those three combinations, you have a potentially great future. You need luck in this game. You know, Robert Friedland, you know, was in his mid-40s when he discovered Voisey's Bay, which was by mistake. They were looking for a different metal, mineral, I should say, diamonds, and they came across what is base. So you need luck, and I guess that's the fourth element. And I'm a glass half full, not half empty kind of guy. So I think if neurology, as they call it, in terms of what we have next to us, is anything to go by, Lady Luck will be with us. And I'm a betting guy. I think give us 1 to 2 years, we will be sitting on something very significant here.
Okay. Can I just talk just on Zambia, because we've had a couple of companies we've talked to with Zambian assets recently. How are you finding dealing with the local and national mining code, government, etc.? I mean, is it easy to do business there? Have you got like local representatives?
We do. We have a small little rep office in Lusaka.
Right.
We've got some local CEO and local CFO and so on. So and they do a very good job there. I think for me, having sort of worked in different parts of the world, for me, number one is there a good mining legislative infrastructure, which Zambia has, and secondly, do they have a good rule of law that's applied by independent judiciary? And I think in large parts of Africa, you could say yes to the first and no to the second. In Zambia, you can say yes to both. They really do have a strong independent judiciary, and a lot of bad people, corrupt people have been put in jail, ex-government people, ex-presidents, and so on. So that gives me a lot of confidence going forward, because I think if we had a major issue, I would be very comfortable with using the Zambian legal infrastructure, which is based on English law, and it works very well.
Right. Can you tell us about share price? Okay, you had a bit of a spike July through end of August. That was on what announcement?
That was on our Chiesa East drilling
results, and then sort of come back down. So you're kind of flat for the year, apart from that kind of spike there. That kind of normal, I think, for the stage that you're at. Have you any concerns about the share price remaining flat, or do you think bringing these smaller institutional guys on board will give you some sort of stability and the capital to actually start delivering on shareholder value, which is something you talked about earlier?
Look, I always think it's dangerous for management to talk about the share price, because the share price is what it is. The market will be accurate long term. It can be inaccurate short term. So, of course, I'd like the share price to be higher. Sure. I have a lot vested and invested in this company as well. I think, ultimately economics out. So, if we are sitting on something substantial, which I think we are, we will be multiples of what we are today. What I can say is that the higher grade zones within Chiesa East, if you look at that, and we are going to publish something early next year on this, the value of that, in my view, is our share price today. So to some extent you could say actually all the rest is the free upside option on the 800 odd square kilometers.
I guess what interests me is that you made the announcement about the gold. Hasn't really done much for the share price, and it wasn't a reaction in the market to that. Do you think that's fair?
I think it depends where people's expectations are. I mean, if people really thought that we were going to get $15 or $30 million, and I too had hoped we'd get something like that.
Right.
But different times, and the DRC is not the easiest place to operate. It's not the easiest place to sell assets, and so the debate is then bird in hand, or do you continue bleeding cash, about $500,000 a year just in the OPEX,
right?
And then hope that better offer comes along. In my view, as long as we've done our homework properly, which I'm absolutely convinced we have, because we rattled that cage very hard, using third parties to try market and sell this asset, we've achieved a good outcome. It's not a great outcome. I think it's a good outcome. It does allow us, and this is important, once we get rid of Šturec, which we will get rid of as well, to turn ARC into a pure play copper exploration company. And that has important consequences, because one of the majors that we were talking to did refer to the fact that whilst they liked ARC, it had all these other different assets, and one of them was in a problematic area for them.
Absolutely. We talked about earlier that theme, that thematic, is very topical at the moment, and looks like it will continue to be based off the whole battery EV revolution. Yeah. You're obviously, I think typically for mines of this type, you're 7-10 years away from producing, but because of that thematic, you think that you're quite attractive, and that's why these large players are talking to you now.
Sure. I mean, look, I think, copper is the industrial metal around, and that for many years has been the bellwether, and I think still is. I don't think there's any other metal that can replace copper. It's an amazing metal. So whether it's EV or you talk to your local plumber and ask him whether he prefers copper or plastics. The answer is copper. So it's got huge long-term applications which aren't going to go away. To me, forecasting any metal price is a mug's game, and I think the critical thing is, are you in an area, or do you have an asset that ultimately will be in the lowest cost quartile versus the competition? And if you are, it really doesn't matter what the price is. I mean, you'll have cycles, obviously. Yeah. You'll reap a lot when the price is high, and you'll harvest less when the price is low. And I think we're in, assuming we do find something very large, which I hope we do, we're into that category where operating in Zambia with a decent copper asset, you would definitely fall within the lower part of the cost quartile.
So you're going to, obviously rainy season coming up, you've done some drilling, you're going to provide some sort of guidance towards second quarter next year, I guess, as to what the rest of the year looks like. Some, I guess, results from what's gone on this year as well.
Look, we've been publishing the results, every other week or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So we're forming a nice picture.
Right.
We have moved onto 2 rigs onto 2 other anomalies, new anomalies. I'm pleased to say that one of them has shown early stages of mineralization. So that would mean we actually have 3 targets now that are proven to have mineralization. So, that's hugely encouraging. I mean, how many exploration companies, early stage exploration companies, can point to that? Very few.
Yep. Okay. Nick, thanks for the update. First time we've spoken to you, so great for all our followers and subscribers to hear this story afresh from you. Sounds like there's quite a few things happening. Obviously, I hope you get the SPA over the line, get that money in the new year, and plan and make your plans for next year. Sounds like there might be some capital raise in the early part of next year as well, maybe. And you're aiming for sort of smaller institutional players to kind of come on board. Those are the kind of drivers for you. Anything else that you're aiming to achieve in next year or in the next 12 months over and above the drilling?
No, I think, look, that sums it up. We need to get Slovakia off the slipway. I think we have significant cash resources post the sale of
C3,
of Casa and Slovakia, if that happens, which I'm hopeful that it will happen over the next few weeks. And so that sort of puts off any raise actually near term. So through to Q2, actually we're in great shape, and we'll have to see what sort of capital we can get invested post that.
Beautiful. Nick, thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Pleasure to hear that story. Stay in touch. Let us know how you get on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also catch us on our website, cruxinvestor.com, and Cruxcast, our podcast series. Plus, most days you can catch us on LinkedIn and Twitter. We'd love getting your feedback, so please keep that coming, and we'll speak to you again soon.